to return to school based on certain algorithms. Certain states have allowed students to come on a odd even formula. That means the roll number in the class is odd. They can come one day, and the others can come on the other day. And then different states have different formula, and this is allowed only for students which are 10th class onwards. And it has started a big debate in India, especially among the parents. To discuss on this subject further, let me invite my friend from UK, Mr. Naval Gun.
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. Yes, children returning to school. It's a massive issue. And I'm sure the Indian government, just like every other government around the world, is debating how to do it, knowing at the same time that children probably are not as affected by this virus. That doesn't mean to say they can't get it or they can't carry it, but the effects don't seem to be as bad as in the adult population. So, in some respects, um, certain leaders around the world are saying schools are, very safe places. But it's all, of course, schools have got adults in, i.e., the teachers, support staff, etc., etc. So, it's a big topic actually, and it's an interesting one to cover today, especially as CK. You've got young children, so you're going through this as we speak. When are they going to go back to school?
Well, they are in the junior school, so I think we are safe for now. The schools are not open. Only the senior schools are open. Middle and junior schools are still shut. There is no ruling on those. So I think we are feeling safe. We are at home.
And fortunately, you're in a situation where you run the company, so you can dictate in many respects where people work, how people work, what their time frame is. Um, Knowing that you've got parental duties during the day that you wouldn't necessarily have if the children were at school. And you've had to deal with that for some time. But imagine now the situation where the schools say, yes, okay, we're going to open up, and they go back to school. What would be going through your mind as a parent, as an adult, you know, of a certain age that is moving towards that susceptibility arena of if you catch COVID, you know, you're in that higher age group bracket where you're going to be exposed to it. You haven't had the vaccine yet. You've got elderly parents in the same house. So, what would be going through your mind? Because I think this is where people are currently, and you're a logical individual, and you recognise that you can only control what's in your control. But if the government said tomorrow your kids can go back to school, what would be the thought processes going through your mind?
We will not react on such a decision. We will wait and watch. Very frankly, Neval, because as you said, there are elders at home which are at risk, and also the elderlies who are at extreme risk. So while the younger students are not at that much of a risk, they have better immunity, as it has been also announced by the doctors. As far as vaccination is concerned, below 12 years anyway, they are not getting vaccinated. So I think they are in a safer group, but the people who are elders and elderly are very high risk, especially people who are diabetic and heart patient. So I think considering these risks, we would not consider this as a ultimatum from the government. We'll wait and watch and send the kids to school only when we feel it is safe for all of us as a family.
And I'm sure you're no different from many other households in India and across the world, agonizing with that issue. Um, and the fact that the governments are now saying, yes, I mean, in India, some areas can come back, other areas can't. The age groups in certain areas are now being encouraged to come back to school, but the same age group in another area isn't being encouraged. And it looks like this is a bit of a hodgepodge of a decision making arena. But We have to tell people today this isn't hodgepodge at all. This is very calculated risk that each of these areas are looking at. So I think my first word of caution, advice, thought process is they're trying to do their best. It's a these are unprecedented arena. As we keep talking about this, we've been talking about it for nearly a year now. It's not going away that quickly. Even with a vaccine, it's not going to, rapidly diminish. You've got millions of people that still need to be vaccinated. Even if young people aren't going to be vaccinated, we've still got lots of others that need to be vaccinated before we can say that this virus is under control. So let's think about let's think about the teachers, because most teachers are going to be over the age of 18. You know, teaching assistants may be around about 18. Quite young, but most teachers are going to be over the 18. In other words, in many respects, they're going to be in one of those critical arenas where they're at risk. And of course, as you mentioned, you know, um, the fact you're a teacher doesn't mean you're immune to having any other ailment. You may have diabetes. You may have other health issues, asthmatic, maybe. All of these things that you deal with in the normal day of life. But now there's this big C that's coming through, this COVID thing that attacks people with poor health. How do you think they're feeling about all this?
Well, I think they must be feeling in the same way as normal human being is feeling. I think they are definitely at risk because they are elder. They don't have they are not in queue for getting vaccination right now. The queue is only for the healthcare workers, uh, the municipal corporation workers, and also the law enforcement. The teachers are not there. So I think it is quite risky for them also to come to school.
I think I think the point is, as you mentioned it, they're just people. They're just like you and me, and they're in a frontline job. Um, for whatever reason, it's been chosen that they're not going to get vaccinated early. In other parts of the world, teachers are on the list to be vaccinated early. In the UK, they're not on the list to be vaccinated early. So again, this is decision making that must be really tough for governments to do. Um, but the bottom line here is, this is about children's education. So let's go back to, where the big impact is here. What can we do as adults at home, parents at home, with kids that might actually be concerned with going to school? Because, I mean, I know your children are quite young, but let's say they're a little bit older. Let's say they were 14, 15 years old and they'd read everything about this COVID virus and about how it affects the elderly. And they just happen to have grandparents and elderly parents living in the same house. How would they feel about going to school, even though their school's been opened?
So, considering my family and whatever I have seen around me, the kids are more close to the grandparents, and they spend more time with them. So, I think if elderly adolescent um, are getting together, I think they should be worried about each other's health. My presumption is a teenager would be very concerned about this decision, where he or she will be asked to attend the school, considering they have their loving grandparents. They don't want to put their grandparents at risk.
Yeah, because they've got to an age where they can rationalize these things. So I'm not saying that this is easy for anybody, but just like parents have probably got their focus on, do I want my child to go to school and be exposed to it? Very, one track thinking. It's the knock on effect. What about your child? Have you asked your child? I mean, let's face it, 16, they're still a child. In the UK, you can't vote until you're 18. So I suppose that's the coming of age, if you like. Um, you can you're pretty well advanced educationally. Your thought processes are quite well advanced at 16. So you can rationalize these things, but just being told go to school because now the government have been allowed it. Let's just think about what's the thought process going through some of those young people's minds. Some will just, like water off a duck's back. They'll basically say, "Thank goodness I'm getting out of my bedroom." You know, I'm getting back to a bit of normality, and that'll be the only thing on their mind, because they may not have the environment that you and I have been talking about. There may just be, a couple of parents, couple of children at home, pulling each other's hair out, bashing around four walls, and desperate to go to school. And there could be the others that have got elderly grandparents, elderly parents. Maybe a sibling that's got a health issue. Remember, they're going through it just as much as you're going through it. So this is a really big, important time now to talk to each other. Just make sure you got that communication level going.
Certainly, Neval, I think that's key to all of this issue. But I must update you about the type of professionals we are in India. There are primarily two types of professionals. One which work for the government service, and as a rule, the government service servants don't serve in one place for more than 3 years, so they get transferred out to a different city, and many times into different states. And if they are within the state government service, then they get transferred from district to district. The ruling is like this, and hence the schooling system is also designed like that. You're transferring with bag and baggages, your kids will get automatic transition to a new government school in that new district where you're going, or new state where you're going. Then there are other types of professionals who never ship, like people, business people, who do not transit. So their kids study in the same school. They start at kindergarten and they pass out and they go to college in the same city. So they will have a very cohesive one city, one district friend circle. So I'm of the first category. My dad was a government servant, and every 3 years we used to change our school, and the things would change drastically. You're in a different place, you see different people, different language, different color. you know Everything changes. People in India, so diversified. You see people of different color also, skin color. So so this kind of situation sort of normalize you start accepting people, because you work with different variety of languages, people, religion, and all that. So those kind of people are also there. So if we talk about this aspect, then there are two kinds of people, clearly. One which may be very fine tuned to this change, because the change is the normal for them. And then the other who never change. And that could be a real problem for those kind of people, because now when they go back to school, they will feel like as if they are the children of government servant. After a gap of 1 year or 1.5 years, when they attend the school, everything will be different. Teachers will be different. Maybe they will have to go to a different schooling system. We don't know. So I think we are getting into that level of normalization now.
Well, it's interesting, as you say. I'm aware that people move around quite quickly, and it's a large section of the economy. It's just not a small number of people. But just imagine now, you've had your child during one of those moves. So in your next move, the child's really not had a connectivity to a school, but it may have occurred over the last year or so. So you've had that first move, and the child now becomes of school age, and now they're going into school, but then they're not, and then they're going back into school, and then they're not. So although you might have, people that have moved around once or twice with young children, so the child has already got that mechanism in their own mind to say, yes, we're moving, it's going to be new over here. You've actually got those that are just moving into that have never done this before, and other people that are moving into the public sector that now have come in with older children, because maybe they've moved from the private sector to the public sector. So, I mean, all I'm saying is change is ever change. I mean, it's never ever going to be the same thing. So, but going back to the thought process, actually, and you said it to yourself in a private conversation you and I have had. You're playing cards with the children. They're coming off the video games, the digital games, the binging of Netflix, cartoons, etc., and you're playing cards with the kids. That's a form of communication that they will remember for the rest of their lives, because this is real family time. And I think this is where I think the family oriented people around the world, I think that's where we're going to get the benefit from.
Well,
I mean,
actually, that was becoming a big issue for us. How do we bond? Because all of us are
yeah.
here. My parents are also with us. Our kids are there. The entire family is there. 7, 8 people in one house. How do we do bonding? Because we are doing our different things. During the work time, all the adults are employed in their activities online. So they have a lot of, home office side of type of scenario. Then the uh, grandparents are busy watching news or something that they like, and the kids are also doing online courses, online schooling, and they have their cartoon time. Then they have to sleep. So what is the time that we as a family do bonding? There is absolutely zero time. It is actually worse than what we were doing earlier, when we had an office and we had time for everything. This has become a worse situation. So we had to bond with our, not only with kids but also with parents. Where is the time to catch up? So we decided that, hey, we will switch off the TV and everything, all external elements, and after dinner, every night we will play a game of cards. And we've did research online. We found the game of cards that you can play with many people, like 6, 7 people. So we decided to play those games, and those are very, very engaging. And kids are picking up very fast. Within one day they became pro. They start cheating. They start peeking into other people's cards.
Oh yeah, they'll start cheating. They'll start manipulating the game because they want to win. I mean, kids want to win. You know, Playing the game's one thing. No matter how much we put it into them, it's the playing of the game that's important. Rubbish. I want to win. Don't take that fighting spirit out of them, because that's really important. And playing cards. I mean, I remember as a kid many years ago, playing cards with my mum, and we had a button jar. So we weren't playing for real money. It was imaginary, and it was buttons. And all the buttons had the same value, despite the fact some were bright and shiny and some were pretty dull, and the old penny farthing might be in there, slipped in there because we just gathered everything up. But the point is, we had a lot of fun, and it's amazing the type of games you play, what the logical process goes through in your brain. It really is an interpersonal skill you're developing here. You're developing mathematical skills, you're developing picture skills. Eventually, your child will be able to know, just exactly what card's coming, because they bent the corner on it and they put the little finger there and they say, "Ooh, four of spades is coming. I don't want that one. I'm going to keep with what I've got here." And we all play those silly little games, right the way through our lives in many respects. So, playing cards, a Monopoly, Mousetrap, all those sort of things, have a bit of fun. It is bonding. I think it's a really good word you use. It's bonding. Um, my wife and I constantly think, every time we see all of these issues come up on the TV, we're probably two of the luckiest people in the world, but because all of our children are adults. They've fled the nest. They've got their own pads, houses, flats, apartments, call them what you may. So they're past the education, the formal education arena. But we often think, what would be the case today if all of those 5 kids were still living at home. They would have all been, um, as far as they're concerned, adults. As far as we're concerned, adolescents. In a particular age range, all requiring broadband. Four of the five, or three of the five, would have their own bedrooms. The two boys would be together. We got a big property. We're lucky. We got lots of rooms that they could have gone to. Each of them would have had a PC, so we wouldn't have had the issue of fighting over PC time. Um, they would have all been in their rooms, because kids come back from school and they just go to their rooms because that's what happens. I just think I think we'd have struggled, frankly, if everyone had been forced to stay at home, not allowed to go to school. And then the agonising moment would be because they were all at different schools. So the odds would have been that one school would have said, yes, we're open for business, and the other four would say no. What pressure would be on one of the five? Not just to go to school, the relief of going to school and seeing their mates and working in their own community, but the chance that they could bring the infection home. I mean, I'm diabetic. Would they? Would we have had a long discussion over that? And the answer is yes, because I've had long discussions over that with them currently, because of social distancing, etc. So it's a real difficult time for everybody, and we're in that time where things are opening up a bit more, and there's the excitement, the adrenaline, the relief of going back to some form of normality. But at the same time, we need to be respective of what people are thinking about. So the bonding bit, as you say, I think is important. Talk to your own children, talk to parents around your children, get the bonding level back together again, and together we can fight this coming out the other side, because it's going to take us all to work together to get this right.
Neville, I think you raised very pertinent points. And for those exact points, we are contemplating to not send kids to the school for next 1 or 2 years. And because the risks are too high. And we have to take the right decision, because whatever decision we take will have the implications. So we are right now evaluating the online study platforms. Probably take out the kids, put them in online platform, and for extracurricular activities, put them in different clubs. So that way we will have better control on their life rather than sending them to school. Once the life return to normal after a couple of years, probably we can put them back into school. So I think this is what is running in our mind. We had few discussions within the family. I think this session is going to end in month of February, March, around that time. So I think that would be the time to look for alternatives.
And I don't think you're alone in that thought process. I know many people around the world are thinking, very, very similar. Um, the thing we do know is that children grow by being part of a team. So the issue is trying to replicate that teaminess in today's environment, which is not going to be easy, but it's certainly doable. Um, but we wish everyone, the best of luck in getting through their own maze in front of them. But like anything else, we only get through the maze if we talk with each other. So by sharing things like this, by being open and honest about what the difficulties are and what your thought processes are, because many people are going to be in exactly the same situation. Although it's not it's not by stretch of the imagination close to the same issue, um, but men of a certain age, and you're certainly in that age group that would be talked about in the sort of European arena, they do not share their issues with other men, despite the fact how close they are bonded with them. Um, as we've seen in the past couple of years, the Invictus Games, etc. If you've been following Prince Harry's um, route, you will see that the royals have all been talking about opening up, talking with other people, getting things off your chest before they actually become far too difficult. We'll mention the word depression, anxiety, and it's all these things that really do hit us if we go insular and we don't talk about it. Now's the time not to talk. Now's the time not talk about it. Now's the time to talk about it. And you'll be amazed at how many people um, would love to talk but don't, because they just well up. They feel as though it's the weakness. They should be better. Um, it's not what people should be doing at their age. Frankly, that's a load of rubbish. If it's going through your ears, you need to address it. If it rushes through your ears and out the other side, that you've addressed it already. All right, it's not important. Clearly, it's cleared off. But if it stays between the ears, if you start to think about it internally, it's an issue. Therefore, talk with others about it. And there are plenty of people out there, your friends, your relations, even your kids, where you can talk through these subjects, because believe it or not, they're going through those same issues too. They not be seeing your world, they're seeing their world. Now's the time to understand that their world is not scary, but you need to make sure it's not scary. Otherwise, their learning level will drastically reduce.
Yes, Naval, I think thanks very much for your good advice. I think this is a global phenomena. Everybody is passing through that. And if somebody wants to share any other solution that we have discussed in this video, they are most welcome. We will bring you online in the next episode with Mr. Naval Gund. Until then, I'd like to say goodbye to you, Naval. Thank you very much for finding suitable time to talk to us today on Monday morning. We'll catch up again on something very interesting.
My pleasure, CK. And good luck, everybody. It's Monday. There's 5 working days of the week. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.